it's interesting that this is post-lunch, so you could order food on Grab Express. If you really eat too much, then you have got, good doctor.
Thank you.
And if you really don't like the cutlery at home, you have Lazada. Okay?
The definition of full funnel on stage, right?
Yeah. So it's an interesting one. Just before we get into this whole super app space, because so many super apps exist on our phones and it's so much part of our daily lives. And it's interesting that, from a HAVAS point of view, we believe in something which is called meaningful brands, because we believe if 75% of brands disappear tomorrow, maybe consumers won't feel it. And so therefore we are sitting with a whole set of brand marketeers who really make our lives more enriching on an hourly basis. So in that space, and before, from a whole marketing community ecosystem, all of us constantly believe in this conversation of performance, ROAS, and all of that. But before we go in there, and just to borrow from what Pa Ganeshan said, this whole thing about the heart and the emotion and the brand, I would like, maybe to start with Dev and then maybe with you and maybe finally with Baike. Any stories, how a Grab or a Lazada or, Good Doctor would have participated, which is really brands coming alive on these platforms. It is probably a consumer story, a participation you would have done with a client, which really gives us how you built a brand, made it more engaging, which is beyond the ROAS and the performance and, really the bottom of funnel question. Anything,
Yeah, I think that's a great question to start with, and it actually dovetails into the last discussion panel where our friend from Nestle was talking about the power of brand. And I think that's really important when we take a look at super apps. Our conversations with marketers often is, what is my ROAS? What's my bottom of the funnel function? And obviously that is an opportunity, absolutely. But I think we need to understand that consumers come to these super apps and they actually have purchase in mind, which is great. That's why we have the bottom of the funnel conversation. At the same time though, these are marketplaces. So as a brand, you have to remember you're not alone. And you also have to remember that there's frequency in visits and repetition in visits. We were actually talking about it. Look at the number of apps that you have on your phone. How many do you go to on a regular basis? And the power of brand ensures that when you come to these super app marketplaces, you are actually building a cognitive behavior that looks to repeat purchase. So ultimately as a marketer, what you want to do is whether they come to Lazada or whether they come to Grab, you're looking at opportunities for when they come to these marketplaces, they're actually looking for you.
So just Dave, just to bring on something for the big marketing community here, any example where you would have participated with a brand and you probably, they could be a competitor to Nestle, it could be beyond Indonesia, it could be whatever, but anything you would think that, where you really participated well in creating a consumer engagement which promoted more a share of heart than just market share?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we think about the heart thing, I'll actually kind of go in almost a dissimilar fashion to address it, because I think utility is actually what consumers are looking for. How do we make their lives more fulfilling with ease? And so we actually had a really good engagement with Noors from Unilever in the Philippines, in which we created this full funnel concept with them called shoppable recipes. And effectively how it worked is you would click on a Noors ad on Grab, and it led to a experience in which you could select what type of meal that you were wanting to cook. I think during the pandemic, a lot of us picked up hobbies, and cooking certainly was one of them. It wasn't for me necessarily, but for many people it was. And this allowed you to have a basket which drove to Grab Mart, and it had a fully filled out basket in which you could opt in or opt out on various ingredients. So basically with a click of a button, we had the utility and opportunity for consumers to understand the importance of Noors and allowing them to create healthy and home-cooked meals. And there went my mic.
Okay. Let me just go to you, Baike. So any such experience, because the last 2 years, especially for, platforms like you, has really been a huge opportunity and consumers really gravitated in this space, any such experience where you really created a brand engagement beyond performance and beyond, immediate marketing metrics?
When we help to make the quality of life of the people better. Very fundamental. So, Good Doctor, I think working together also with Grab and with Lazada on many other places, we provide the vaccination at the time, even up until boosters, right? And then it is really heartwarming when we are hearing that to a certain point we save lives, right? So, I'm shivering. It's something bigger than we are talking about market share, brand recognition, brand association, whatever it is. It's just that we do a good thing to people's life. It is greater than any story that we can create.
Absolutely. Anything by Intan? It's, from how you would see, because all of us go to Lazada every second hour for things which are very personal. So any brand initiative you would have seen, or you would have, kind of created, which is just different from the marketing optimization part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think related with the Superapps too, right? So far, yeah, actually people comes to us usually during this mega, for example, today. I'm sure all of you are shopping today, but then there are many players. It's only not us, not just us. And then the question would be, so how can we ask people to come to us every day, even not during the double date sale, but also to make Lazada as the main preference when it comes to online shopping. So for example, oh, I need something today. Where should I shop? So how to make sure that people will put Lazada as their first consideration in mind when they want to shop outside double date, so that it needs more than just lower funnel, right? You need to create how to be the main consideration mindset, and that create the brand love, the brand engagement. I think before this session, we mentioned also about the brand love a lot, and that's what we need. Because we want people to come, not only because we offer cheap price, no, but actually because there is a connection. We are the first consideration in mind when it comes to online shopping. So that's what we want to do also.
Interesting that in modern applications, more so for youngsters, which is, where probably they don't come from the classical domain of marketing in terms of, brand love, they don't have time, they don't have patience, but still how do you create this, share of heart, how do you create this, first point of consideration? Dave, just a question for you therefore, last 2 years have been, different, and, of course, as a large technology-led company, you had your own sense of, how the growth plans would have been. But anything which really accelerated beyond your expectation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thinnest of silver linings, and I really mean it, the thinnest of silver linings to the pandemic, and we all know this, is there was an acceleration in adoption of digital platforms. Specifically what we saw on Grab is a level of stickiness where the majority of our users actually use multiple aspects of the super app, whether it's payment, whether it's delivery of food, Mart, things of that nature. So we absolutely saw an acceleration of that. And I think for marketers that provides an opportunity because the strength of those first party signals only got broader and more specific, because then we actually understand user behavior in different demographics. And we're able to leverage the power of that first party data in a very brand safe environment. And I think that's a key thing, where actually consumers are coming to the platform to actually do one thing and one thing only, and that's to interact with brands. Unlike various other platforms like social media, which of course are fantastic platforms to build brands and to engage with users, there are a number of things that they're seeking and searching for on those platforms. But on super app platforms, they're actually only coming to interact, and let's call it conversate, because that's what advertising is. It's a way that we introduce ourselves as brands to consumers in that environment.
I actually have a question for you, Intan, on this one. So, Lazada is a great platform. You go transact the 10-10s, 11-11s, all that, part of our lives. But when brands look at it, how do you see, engagement and other brands trying to use you, as an engagement platform, because somewhere that part of the conversation needs to really be an ongoing engagement. So how do you see, brands using Lazada, as an engagement platform?
Yeah. So actually, we provide many engagement opportunity. So for example, now actually we want to be also one of the most attractive shoppertainment, where it's not only about selling, so it's not only about the sale live streaming, but actually we have also what we call as a Last Life Plus, where we share inspiration. So there actually where the brands can tap in. There we share inspiration about, for example, fashion or beauty tips, and then any other topic that actually attract interest for our target audience. That's what we do inside the platform. And actually this is a very good platform for the brands to create engagement. So for example, imagine that one of the episode we had, it created 600,000 views, which means imagine that how many stadium that you can gather people, that huge amount, but actually is in a very focused media during the 30 minutes to 1 hour session. So that's only one of the example. But on top of that, for sure, we have also some other programs that actually really to create engagement with the brands.
Actually, while in the immediate marketing scheme of things, these will be great opportunities. Actually, I have a different question for you. This whole thing of being purposeful, this whole thing of life versus probably consumption, it's a different space altogether. So, and plus you started from ground zero. So what are the challenges you would have seen in trying to hold, in this whole growth?
Good Doctor were born by the end of 2019, before COVID timing. So the situation is really different at that time, right? So we were entering the market previously just like any other health tech that previously not really as much as it is today, right? So, but then I think looking at the situation, we are doing some prioritization from the business point of view. So that started from last year, we were focusing on the B2B rather than into the general B2C. We're still serving B2C, but from the business point of view, I think the B2B is becoming our priority compared into just general B2C. So when you are asking me about challenges, number one is building that awareness and association that is actually, it is there for a B2B focused company in health tech in Indonesia. Because generally people just, just known for any other brand that is available outside. So that's one. So in terms of the, I would say building that brand recognition as well as also the association, what we are trying to build is not in the general B2C but for B2B, that's one. And then number two, since we were born in the pandemic era, the challenge will be from momentum to sustainability. Because people is saying like, okay, during COVID, everyone is having the doctor consultation online and etc., right? But then how it will be sustained moving forward? We believe in that because the adoption for technology has never been this high before. And thanks also to Grab, we are partnering together. So every single delivery of Good Doctor prescription that is being delivered by the GrabSend. So those kind of behavior that we find a momentum in pandemic era, the challenge will be on the sustainability. How can we make it sustain? And from the business point of view, I will come to the point number 3 is the path to profitability. At the end of the day, we build brand and everything. I understand everyone is kind of a little bit tired of saying numbers and etc., but bottom line is important. So those are the 3 challenges that I see it is very real. Yeah, thank you.
Actually, if I could piggyback on the point about sustainability, from what we can tell and see, even as we exit the pandemic, food delivery, for example, when we survey our consumers on Grab, is going to continue. And I think ultimately the services that Good Doctor supplies, Lazada presents, that Grab participates in as well, offer convenience to consumers. And so I think that's the lens that we're looking at. And that's why, when we started this conversation, it's really about a full funnel and a compressed full funnel. Because consumers right now are looking for ways to save time. I don't think there's anyone here in the audience or any consumer who has more time than they know what to do with. I certainly don't. But I think the convenience that technology has brought to consumers, ushered in during the pandemic, is here to stay. I don't see that going reverse.
Actually, I think we have around 5 minutes, but so I have one question for you. As a CMO, how do you fit Lazada? If you were to do a marketing campaign, would you really put it at the bottom of the funnel? Would you really put it at the top of the funnel? How would you like to put it for, because there are lots of the whole marketing community here. So how would you where would you peg it?
Yeah, so for sure there are some portion towards the upper, for sure there are some portion towards the lower. And maybe so far actually it's true that we spend more on the lower because then it directly purchase conversion, right? But again, we cannot rely on the lower more and more because at the end there is some point that actually there will be no efficiency anymore. When your base is getting smaller and smaller, then there is no longer efficiency. And how to make sure this base is big because of the upper funnel? That we need to recruit, that we need to penetration, that we need to get higher new buyers, high quality buyers. And how to get that? For sure, we need to drive the consideration. And when we talk about consideration, of course, we talk about relevancy, how to be relevant, how to create engagement. That's all what marketing is about, right? So how to create that people will come because I see something, because I love the brand, because I consider the brand, not because it offers me a double date sale, for example, not only because of that. So that's how we see it. That's why there is a shift now that actually we also put bigger part for the upper funnel. And we are trying to really build this slowly because it's actually not easy. Many times I'm being challenged. So how's the performance? How it links directly to daily organic DAU, daily average users, DAU, organic, for example. It's difficult for me, to be honest, because actually my background is not e-commerce, so I'm still learning, but that's what we are trying to do. So that's the logic on how, because we want to build the upper funnel too, not just about the lower funnel.
It's interesting that, a can of coffee or Lazada, it still comes from the consideration, the brand love, and the share of mind. It just, the principles remain the same. Actually, Dave, one question, as a technology major, and 2023, hopefully the shadow of COVID is behind us and markets open up. What are the constraints or opportunities which you see as, we move into 2023?
Well, I think the constraints are unfortunately very clear from a macroeconomic perspective. You cannot ignore inflation. You cannot ignore supply chain issues. And this is why I think marketers are actually looking at super app platforms and retail commerce as a way to have the most efficient return on their dollars. We talked about lower funnel, but at the same time trying to balance that with upper funnel. We actually had a conversation about this just yesterday. And I think the reality is that there's an opportunity to do both simultaneously. The key though is if you're going to take a look at a commerce app or a super app to do a full funnel, then you want to make sure that you have measurement attached to it. So we're partnering with Kantar to do that on the brand list study. And then the bottom of the funnel stuff plays out on its own because we are a marketplace. So we're looking at ways where we can enable and safeguard brands' dollars as we move into what by all means looks like will be a very challenging 2023, whether we want to admit it or not.
Actually, I had a different question, and I think we'll be going short on time. So, Ike, because 2023, hopefully, COVID is receding. So, and you spoke of sustainability. So, therefore, from a super app perspective, how do you see the transformation? how do you see some of the changes in your growth path as, human health and concerns on health probably take a different context as 2023 comes in?
I see that it is inevitable to reduce friction amongst building blocks. When I say about building blocks, it's end user, it's health services providers, it's delivery services, and etc. So reduce friction amongst that is going to be something that we need to deliver. So that's where the super app, in my view, is playing a very important role, or at least taking a big step for us to be on that position, because it is becoming more demanding. The kind of consumer and customer that we have today, they are becoming more and more demanding, right? So I think that's the key takeaway from me. Reduce friction amongst all of the building blocks is inevitable. And then the last one, I think we need to be friend with crisis, with challenges, right? Because previously, perhaps we see crisis only happening every 10 years, 8 years. Now it's becoming more frequent. So we don't know the next crisis will be coming when. So the ability to be that, pardon for borrowing too often to use the words of agile, but I think it is what it is. Just be friend with changes, because nothing constant but changes.
Yeah, I think we need to wind up. So one last question, opportunity 2023. What would you think, we should be looking at, if we had to do one thing, with Lazada, or you would think for the super app, economy, so to speak, in a marketing perspective, what should, we think of?
For me, the most important is how to be relevant still. Why? Because actually behavior may change, trend may change, or even, for example, the category preference may change, interest, passion points may change. But the question is how we need to be sure that we keep the relevancy of our brands, of what we offer in our apps with consumers.
I'll piggyback off of that, because when we talk about building brands, we talk about reach, and there's 3 R's in this, but the R that really matters is relevance, right? So it's utilizing the signals, the first-party data, to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible in, once again, what is going to be a challenging year.
So relevance enabled through first-party data and
mindfulness, as in the first-party data is being mindful of what we have. Yeah.
Okay, on that note, I think we will have to, wind up today. So being relevant as a super app, as we move into 2023, I think that's really, the final understanding. And I guess that's what we keep on doing on an everyday basis as far as our marketing community is concerned. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Laser.
Thank you once again to all of our panelists. We'd like to invite you to stay on stage and step to the front for our official photos with MMA Indonesia. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Dave Young, Ms. Intan Ayu Kartika, Ms. Ika NOORHAYATI, and of course our moderator, Mr. Satyajit Sen. Thank you very much for the fresh perspectives that were provided with your discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for your time.